Okay, should we get started? Bismillah, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So for those who might not be aware, we're going to be shifting a little bit of what we've been doing typically on Monday nights and Wednesday nights, mostly because my travel schedule is a little bit all over the place over the next few weeks. I was out of the country last week. We went for Umrah, alhamdulillah. Some of you who are here were with us. May Allah accept it from us. I have to go out of the country again this weekend. I'll be not here next week, and then I'll be back the week after. And then I have to go out of the country again. We're going to Uganda, taking people from the community on relief work to do work with Sudanese refugees. May Allah grant them ease, make us always from amongst the supporters of Sudan and its people. And then after that, inshallah, I'm hoping to not travel for some time. I don't know what we'll do post that time, but likely going into the summer, we'll have a different set of weekly programs and classes that we are doing. We might resume the 40 hadith and the Sirah class that we've been doing for the last couple of years. We might change it up a little bit. But just to give people an idea, I think in the advertising of this, we put out different Mondays and Wednesdays that we'd be doing this over the course of the next few weeks. And if we don't finish with what we're intending to complete in that time, we'll just add on some more subsequently on Mondays and Wednesdays. Does that make sense? If you registered for the class, I sent out an email earlier today that amongst different things included a WhatsApp group that I'll be posting different things from time to time, notes, hadith we're looking at, verses from the Quran, some kind of structure to the conversation, depending on the direction that it goes in. So take a look at that email and join that WhatsApp group if you can. We'll also post the link there to the online stream weekly, as well as just other things relevant to the class. If you don't have the WhatsApp link because you didn't register, that's fine. There's a good chance when we break into smaller groups, discussion-wise, that you'll be sitting with somebody who has it and they can just add you onto it. And if not, at the end, we can figure that out, inshallah, as well. So we're going to be looking at the first 11 verses of Surah Al-Mu'minoon. Some of the things that I'm hoping we're going to cover today. One, I want to look at a couple of hadith that talk about the importance of just gathering in Allah's houses around Quran, just to set a framework as to why it is that we're doing this, and where we can bring multiplicity to our intention. So it's not just about rote memorization or the engagement of kind of knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but understanding consequently what the hadith tells us is a gain for gatherings like this, particularly when you gather in Allah's house around Quran. Secondly, I'd like for us to have like a baseline definition of what two terms are, tafsir and tadabbur. So tafsir being kind of Quranic exegesis, and tadabbur being a little bit more of an introspective, personal reflection on Quran, and we'll delve into that a little bit more. I want to speak a little bit about the background of the chapter we're looking at to give us a little bit of contextualization as it relates to how tafsir is done more broadly, and a few kind of terms that we'll look at. We'll look at the previous chapter, Surah Al-Hajj, and how that connects to this chapter potentially. And then we'll get into the first verse as much as we can, if not in its entirety. And then we'll pick up from there in the next session. Does that make sense? Yeah? Is anybody listening to what I was saying? No? Yeah? Jet lagged? Sophia's asleep in the first row. Great. So Imam Ibadur Rahman is here with us. He's going to recite the verses for us, inshallah. And I had asked people in the RSVP also, to bring like a translation or a Quran with translation. You can have it on your phone just so we can kind of engage the text that way as well. But Surah Al-Mu'minoon is the 23rd chapter of the Quran. If you want to open it up and read along, inshallah. Then we'll begin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون والذين هم للزكاة فاعلون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون والذين هم على صلواتهم يحافظون أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون صدق الله العظيم.
Somebody who has the translation with them, can you read the translation for us?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I'll just read the translation right now. Successful indeed are the believers, those who humble themselves in prayer, those who avoid idle talk, those who pay alms tax, those who guard their chastity, except with their wives or those bondwomen in their possession, for then they are free from blame. But whoever seeks beyond that are the transgressors. The believers are also those who are true to their trusts and covenants, and those who are properly observant of their prayers. These are the ones who will be awarded paradise as their own. They will be there forever.
Jazakallah khair. You can hold on to it. We'll get somebody to run the mic later. So I'm putting in the hadith in the WhatsApp group the first hadith that I want us to look at that isn't directly related to this particular chapter, in that you'll find it in the explanation of the chapter, but I think has a deep relevance to it. There's 4 points that we want to look at in relation to it, just so we can add a little bit of understanding as to why we're coming together, in addition to individual kind of perspectives, thinking about it in a little bit of a different frame. And so what I've put in here is the Arabic, the English, and a transliteration, just for people who might not be able to read the Arabic, but they want to be able to still engage it at some level. Can I have somebody read this, the hadith, as well? And one of the things that, if you've come to previous sessions that we've done, you don't want to be in a place where you have a hesitancy. Part of the learning process is also to be able to understand that the ajr comes in the struggle, right? Where our hadith tells us that for the one who reads Quran essentially with fluidity, there's a reward, and for the one who struggles in their recitation, they get 2 rewards. Recognizing that you're just trying, and part of that process is that we want to utilize opportunities where we're all together to overcome anxiety that has us what exactly, right? So no one's asking you to draw out rulings or extrapolate meaning, but you want to build a relationship with Allah's book, with the words of his messenger, alayhi salam, and to utilize the opportunity to bring barakah into the gathering through the interjection of these words. And so I put the hadith in the text, in the WhatsApp group. Is somebody able to read it for us? What do you say? I put it in like 4 different messages. Here, let me put it again. Why didn't you join the group when I sent the email to you? I see your name. You just joined right now. You can also just read the English. You don't have to read the Arabic if you are not comfortable with the Arabic. You have to join the group chat. Ask the people around you to jump you in there. They can show you the QR code and you can add in. Can somebody read the hadith? Yeah, go ahead. Great. Can somebody read the Arabic?
Assalamualaikum.
Absalom.
I'm gonna read the English, so I'm gonna try my best. Majtama'a qawmun fi baytin min buyutillah yatluna kitaba Allah wa yatadarasunahu bainahum illa nazalat alaihimu as-sakina wa gashiyathumu ar-rahmah wa hafathumu al-malaika wa takarrahumu Allahu fiman inda.
Great. Jazakallah khair. So the hadith is giving to us a very particular understanding of what the benefit is to engage and to do it together. So no one gathers in Allah's houses reciting his book, yatluna, it says, and then tadarasun is a reflective, there's reciprocity there. It doesn't mean that you're studying alone, but there's a mutuality in the studying of it, except that these 4 things will happen. And I want us to think about these things in relation to why we're coming together to study Surah Al-Mu'minoon. So very easily we could look at the hadith, we could look at the verses, We could talk about what these characteristics are, which we will. There's got to be a grounding for us that gives us an indication that performance in and of itself isn't the goal, but we want to see what it's supposed to produce. And why this is an important variable is because the acquisition of this type of knowledge is supposed to yield these four things according to prophetic counsel, meaning it can set a criteria for us if our pursuit of it is rooted in something other than a good intention. Does that make sense? Like if I'm in a place where this is telling me Sakina is going to descend and Sakina is not descending upon me, it doesn't mean that I'm devoid of all the clutter that came in from the day that I just experienced. But in recognizing that the combination of these four variables the Hadith is talking about sets now a frame that says, hey, if it's not yielding me what it's supposed to be yielding, it doesn't mean that I'm not sitting here, but maybe the motivation behind it isn't what then yields, consequently, these four positives. Maybe there is an element that creates agitation because I'm doing it for the wrong reason, for vanity, for people to be able to say, look, I was there too. Do you get what I mean? There's a beauty that comes from being able to understand that the Prophet ﷺ is giving us an indication of very simple outward processes, but embedded within them is a depth of inward gain opportunity. All you're going to do is sit in the space. You're going to read Quran, you're going to talk about Quran, and then these four things consequently happen. And he's not describing an action that is reserved only for particular categories of people. We're not saying that this consequently happens for people who are the most pious, people who are qualitatively described as being patient or resilient or compassionate or any of these things. All it's saying is you gather in Allah's house, you read Quran, and you learn it together, then these four things are the consequence of that. Does that make sense? And here, what is happening is that the engagement of what is seen is yielding then something that is unseen. And that's the whole idea of ritual in our tradition. It's supposed to be transformative. It's supposed to inculcate change. You don't want to be resistant to change. You want to be present. This is why I appreciate that Tawheed read the Arabic of the Hadith, because he removes the anxiety from the room from people saying, I don't want to be the one to read it. I say, because I love you, why would you not want to read the Hadith of the Prophet of God? What part of you is getting in the way? And it's important to understand, because Sakina is not going to descend if you let anxiety but it be what it is that you're worshiping. If I'm not going to read and the thoughts come in my head, I don't speak Arabic so well, I can't read Arabic as a language. You read the transliteration, right? MashaAllah, right? You still read it. But the intention then becomes what? Who are you sitting here for? And if you're worried about what people are thinking about you, why are you worried about what people are thinking about you? These are your sisters and your brothers. Come with a heart that is able to have what the Hadith is telling us is consequential, descend upon it. Just don't think about it too much, man. You're not in a place where you're the only Muslim. You're in a place where most of us are Muslim. And if somebody here is not Muslim, they're probably here because they're thinking about becoming Muslim, right? When you understand what the Hadith is offering to us, it's giving us a very important understanding of how places in Islamic frameworks are important to give distinction to, because it's mentioning particularly the houses of Allah, right? The buyut of Allah. Here, this is not without meaning, but it's talking about being present in the space. Could we make an argument by extension that everybody who is watching online is also in the space. There's 65 people in the live stream. Yeah, inshallah, by extension, maybe, right? But if you can come to Allah's house, you want to come to Allah's house. And you want to be in Allah's house because there's a distinction in the barakah that takes place when you're in Allah's house versus you're not. Some of us were just in Mecca and Medina. Can you feel what you felt in Medina just by sitting and talking about Medina in New York City? No, you have to go to Medina, right? Can you feel what you feel doing tawaf around the Kaaba by doing tawaf around Washington Square Park? No, it's not the exact thing at all. You have to actually go to the place in order to rear the benefit that comes from being in the place that has that barakah to it. And the Prophet ﷺ is identifying now this space, a house of Allah, not as something that is merely functional, but it brings now a unique convening between the vertical and horizontal prisms, meaning how we exist in a human kind of level of engagement and how we also create an opportunity for engagement with the divine. Allah make us always from amongst those who feels His presence. And understanding that a lot of us enter into spaces with regularity that are just defined by a lot of different things, but they're not defined by spirituality. So you go into spaces that might claim a spiritual neutrality. You know, I'll go to school because it's a spiritual place. I'll go to work being, I feel so spiritual here, but I've never also necessarily thought about it in that mode. Here you have a very unique understanding that the relationship between the heavens and the earth in Allah's house is more permeable than it is in other spaces. Does that make sense? Like all of us experience Ramadan. Some of us experience it different from the rest of us. Some of us experienced it drastically different from others. Each of us actually ends up experiencing it different from everybody else. But you can't say that Shawwal feels like Ramadan, right? Ramadan is categorically different than what Shawwal is in terms of just its experiences. So what happens here is that a house of God is meant to be a space where the inward also gets transformed. And the action that the hadith is describing are two. One, he says tilawa, recitation, and tadarrus, that there is mutual study. These two specifics are going to be things that we do in the course of our time together. If you've never been to a halaqah that I do before, I'm going to have you talk to each other. You're not going to speak only because you have the right thing to say, nor are you going to hesitate in speaking because you're worried about saying the wrong thing. You're just going to ideate. At this juncture in your life, you want to have a relationship with your faith at the level that you're thinking deeply about it and what it means to you. And not just what somebody tells you to think, but to feel empowered to actually know what you believe in. And then you talk to people about it. The second thing that you work on, aside from being in a place where you express so you know what you think about in terms of the things you're thinking about, you also work on listening. And you're hearing what somebody else is saying so that you can understand a little bit more broadly from their perspective what something might mean to them. And I was sitting in my old office at NYU with two of my friends. One is Bengali, one is African American, and I come from a Kashmiri background. And we were talking about the story of Musa alayhi salam. And as we were discussing it, not in like very deep detail, my friend who's black said to me and my Bengali friend that we love the story of Moses in our house. And he talked very deeply and vulnerably about what it means to be the grandchild of slaves and how he relates to a narrative about the emancipation of an entire enslaved population. My Bengali friend said to me, I've never heard anybody talk about the story of Musa alayhi salam like this before. Do you know? It's not meant to have just fixed interpretation that's absolute, but it's meant to be something that you can delve in. And we talk about tafsir versus tadabbur, you'll be able to understand that a little bit more distinctly. When we're reciting Quran and you hear the verses recited, it creates an opportunity for there to be somewhat of a reenactment of revelation, that there is now a participation in divine address. The beginning of Revelation, it was all being orated and spoken. That's why it's called Quran. It's a recited text. So when Imam Ibad recited for us in the beginning, you can understand that it's the same exact words that were recited 1400 years ago. And where and how you have reciprocity in mutual study, the idea is that the Quran isn't supposed to be approached as a private possession, but more so, it's something that's meant to be a shared trust. And that we can engage in more of a sense of understanding of its application in our life by talking to other people who are coming from similar places in life about how it actually means something to them, right? You can't be scared to read your book. And you can't be scared to talk about your book. We're not telling anybody to do tafsir. And I'm going to talk today about how tafsir is done at a high level so we just understand. That's not what anybody's being asked to do, but to be in a place where one of the objectives of this convening is for us to actualize upon what it is that we take from the text. The whole idea is to put it into practice, but to put it into practice also in a way that can understand it from various points of perspective. When the hadith says, Nazalat alayhim as-sakina, tranquility descends upon them, it's not just talking about this in terms of sentiment or psychology, but here where the Quran is giving us an understanding, it's telling us about a stillness that is being bestowed upon us from the divine. And there comes now the potential of the heart to feel settled because it finds itself in the presence of what is undeniably true. Where and how you have an opportunity to not think about this then in a mode of laborious study, but understanding that real learning in Islam, it can't be separated from inward transformation. And that if you're in a place where knowledge is pursued in what I was saying before, agitation or vanity, that pursuit intentionally is going to create a barrier now between that sakina. You hear the Quran, you gotta think about what it means to you to hear it. And when you're listening to it and you're reflecting upon it and you're engaging in it, a strategy of the nafs and shaitan is to get us to be removed from its application in a way where it creates for us a sense of calm in this mode. So number one, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, if you come into Allah's house and gather and recite and study this book together, the first thing that is going to happen is that nazalat alayhim as-sakina, that group of people is going to have tranquility descend upon their hearts. May Allah grant us this tranquility. The second that is described, ghashiyathum rahma, that there's going to be a rahma that envelops them. When you think about, if you know Surah Ghashiyah, right? وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى, the whole idea of the night that is this same word, ghashya, is like it's kind of enveloping you in the way that a blanket would. Do you know? So here, rahma is not just mercy, the way if you drove through a red light, you'd get a ticket. there's infraction, and then there's like a fine at the end of the infraction. Rahma in our tradition also includes an element of gentleness, softness, kindness, love, compassion, and mercy. All of it's together. And what the hadith is saying, that when you come into a house of Allah and you recite Quran and you study it together, after sakina descends on you, rahma envelops you the way like a blanket covers you when you need a blanket to cover you. Do you get what I mean? If you've ever felt just so comfortable and cozy underneath a blanket in your bed. I'm very jet lagged. I don't usually get jet lagged. I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or what, or like this Umrah group was stressful and ruined my life. I don't know. But I came back, man. I slept on this flight from the minute, I don't even know when we took off. I landed somewhere in the middle. I turned to Ibad. And I said, "What time is it?" He didn't know. He was awake. And the stewardess just kept waking us up to eat. So all I did was sleep and eat and sleep and eat and sleep and eat. And because we were flying westward, there was no prayers we had to pray. So I didn't even have to get up out of my chair to do anything. I think I slept, other than the 45 minutes and some that I ate, like the entirety of the flight. And then I got home, I forced myself to stay awake, and I slept from like 10 o'clock till 6. I prayed Fajr, and then I knocked out and slept for like another 6 or 8 hours. I would have kept sleeping if my phone hadn't rung. And then I thought I beat my jet lag, but I clearly did not, because every day since then, regardless of what time I go to sleep, I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I pass out at like 9 or 10, and then the blanket feels so good. I just don't want to get up. And it's not like a bad feeling. It feels nice to be under that. The hadith is saying that when you gather in Allah's house and recite Quran and you study it together, sakina descends on you and rahmah envelops you the way a blanket feels when you're under it and it's cozy. The whole idea is to be able to understand that, and it's not individually, you understand? It's that all of us are covered in the same warm blanket together. Regardless of your background, regardless of your level of practice, regardless of your culture, your country of origin, regardless of what the world is doing to you or not doing to you, everybody gets to be under that cloak of rahmah. Do you see? A connection point for all of us in this way. And here we understand like rahmah is something that's most to nurture and protect. Why is this important in this place? And I would normally ask you to discuss this. I'm just going to throw out some things so we can get through it. Actually, let's do this. Why do you think rahmah is important here in its relation? Just so you could start talking a bit, and I'm not talking so much at you. Why is rahmah important here in relation to the study and recitation of Quran, right? The gathering arguably is about one rooted in knowledge acquisition. So why is the Prophet talking about sakina and talking about rahmah? And he's going to talk about angels surrounding, and then he's going to talk about Allah mentions those people to those who are with him. We'll talk about those two things briefly, but let's turn to the persons next to us. If you don't know names, exchange names. Why do you think rahmah here is important, especially for us as we delve into this chapter and engage in some Quranic study? Let's talk about it a little bit, its relevance in that frame of knowledge acquisition, and then we'll come back and discuss. Go ahead. Just like 3 minutes. How are you? Good, I'm good. How are you? This is on, just so you know.
Do you think we'll need your address for any reason, or your zip code?
Probably. I'll text it too.
Okay, sounds good. So let's go to that's easier. And then,
Can you do me a favor? Just shoot me a text so I don't forget. I just don't want to announce my house address
Yep.
until after lunch.
Do you prefer WhatsApp or regular text?
Anything's fine.
And then I'll leave this. I'm almost. I just have one.
I'm gonna take this home and bring it back
Yeah,
on
that's
Friday.
totally
Yeah. Okay. Ramzan.
Can you put the hadith thing in the chat?
Yeah. Ramzan.
How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm good. Umar Mubarak.
I haven't seen you in so long.
Well, yeah, because you were awake.
Do you remember me?
Of course, I should be asking you that question.
Who are you?
I was saying hi every single day through Morgan's phone to you.
Really?
Yeah. She didn't even tell you.
Thank you.
You. I heard you're gonna be in California.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for telling those guys. Do you know Haroon Nadiri?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Hassan. All of them.
Yeah. Haroon had told me he was talking to them, but then they emailed me and said that they got my contact from you. I'm not going to seal anything.
No,
right?
no. I'll
write
just put
in
it in there so it won't get lost.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Should we start?
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave. I just wanted to say hi.
It's nice to see you. Thank you for blessing us
You're
with
gonna
your
be in
presence.
California for so long.
I'm going to be back after that, so
Where are you going?
I'm going to be back here.
I know, but that's like you're gonna be in California for a whole week. How could you?
Sorry about that. Should I cancel on them?
Yeah. You should cancel on Olive specifically.
Okay.
Well, nice seeing you.
Okay. Why do we think Rahma is important here, especially as we are moving forward on this short journey with these 11 verses of this chapter? Yeah. Can one of you run the mic around? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. One thought that we said is because it allows you to embody what the Quran is teaching instead of just reading it out loud. Like to actually embody, to live it, to be present with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? Why is Rahma important here? Yeah, go ahead. Can you hold on one second?
Oh, yeah.
Mola's going to bring you the mic.
We talked about how, anyone is reading the Quran, especially parts like Surah Al-Mu'minoon, where we're reading aspects of what Allah wants or sees believers to be characteristics that we're meant to embody. Naturally, we're all human, and we're not going to embody every single one of them as we're reading them. And by keeping Allah's rahmah in mind, it helps us to remember that, it's reading these verses are lessons for us. It's an invitation for us to just see and understand who it is Allah wants to come and to be able to take whatever baby steps we can and just see Allah is carrying us in that journey rather than like starting to just self-critique or feel bad.
Great, mashallah. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I think the idea of Rahma also makes the application of Islam a little bit more accessible, because if you have to be perfect in your practice, then maybe we wouldn't be comfortable gathering in this space saying that, oh, we don't have enough knowledge to really talk about it. If we're not perfect with how we describe things, how we relate to it, it's better for us to not discuss it at all and leave it to just the scholars or people who are, appropriately qualified. But the Rahma means that it's for the average Muslim, the normal Muslim, the flawed Muslim.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead. You pass it back. This will be the last one, and then we'll continue.
Just looked at the definition of mercy because I feel like my thought might have been a little extreme. It says compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. Um, and I feel like, and that's what I was discussing, is sometimes when we are at a place where we're learning and knowledge is power, it can also put us in a place of arrogance, that we're here and we're learning something, and that makes us more superior than the others, and it's coming purely from because we have a nafs, and it could just sway us in the direction of ego bringing us superiority, and that might make us feel like we are above others who are not here. So to forgive us from that thought, or even not to bring us closer to that extreme, perhaps talking about how mercy can cover us or blanket us, just frame at once, because knowledge can be powerful and power can sway human nature during that. So just that extreme thought.
Yeah, good. All of these make sense. It's not exhaustive, but think about what knowledge acquisition can potentially bring to somebody in terms of harshness and polemics. What this hadith is telling us is that the output of knowledge can't be severity, it has to be compassion. And if you're in a place where you are authentically studying Quran and the revelation of Allah, it's got to be in a place where its purpose increases benefit and reduces detriment. That's the whole point of Sharia. It's supposed to be expansive. It's not supposed to be restrictive. And the idea of how you can contrast that, right? You can sit down with lots of people. It's not a judgment, it's subjective fact. How many people do you know that studied Quran in a madrasa? And they can tell you stories of Quran teachers who yelled at them, who, God forbid, hit them, right? These kinds of things. It doesn't make sense. Do you see? The hadith is telling us that the mutuality of study and the recitation of this book in Allah's house, Sakina descends and Rahmah envelops. So it becomes a corrective to that mode of knowledge dissemination where you take it and it becomes a mechanism that is weaponized rather than one that creates now a sense of compassion. It doesn't mean you turn religion into something that religion is not. That's not what anybody is saying. But there's a difference where most of you have experienced this in terms of an output of a God that you believe in that's an angry old man in the sky looking for a reason to punish you. Because every other khutbah and every other halaqah, or every time you did something wrong, somebody told you it's haram and you're going to hell again and again and again. Religion is then used in a way. If Allah blesses you with children or you already have children, don't ever tell a kid that Allah will punish them. One, you just don't know that. We don't know what Allah is going to do. You're already skewing an understanding of who God is theologically, but true, you're interjecting now a consequence to who Allah is to that person in a way that this hadith is telling us that's not the point of reading Quran. It's going to envelop you in compassion altogether. Third, the angels surround them. And what it's telling us is then that this is not meant to just be like a human endeavor. So you're in a gathering that converges now realms that are visible and invisible, physical and metaphysical, and an opportunity to be able to yield from the barakah of these things that are creatures purely of light and obedience that sit in this gathering. May Allah make it so. And what happens is that their presence serves both as a mechanism of bringing dignity and honor to the gathering, as well as a gathering that's protected. The angels also observe and they write down what it is that's happening in a way that befits the sanctity of the gathering. Then lastly, the hadith says, and then Allah mentions them amongst those with him. And it's telling us as it's built up, Sakina, Rahma, angels are there. There's divine promise that's here that you as a finite being are being remembered by the one who has no beginning or no end. And you think about what it means to then understand, why would I not come to the masjid? And what is it that's going to keep me from being in a place where I'm able to take from that progression in a way that being absent from the gathering just isn't going to allow for me to really take that benefit. Think about all the people that you're worried about if they think about you or how they think about you. What the hadith is saying is that just simply being in a gathering where the Quran is being recited and it's being studied together in Allah's house, it has these 4 consequences and benefits to it. And then the progression of it gets us to a place where you go from tranquility to rahmah to the surrounding of angels to a final mode that engages in divine mention. And that movement brings us to a place where it's just in a simple act. The hadith doesn't say if you fast every other day of the year, this will happen. It doesn't say if you memorize the whole Quran or you learned Arabic or you went and visited the sick every single day. All it said was you get together, you read Quran, you recite it in Allah's house, and these are the 4 outputs. Like any exercise, it's got to be consistent. If you only exercise today and then you don't exercise for the next 5 years, which is a very real thing with Muslim people, right? Your physical wellness is deeply rooted in the entirety of your wellness. May Allah make us from amongst those who are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healed and well. But we're not supposed to be people who sit so much. I'm going to reference Umrah a lot because I just came from Umrah. It's not to disclude anybody, but to extrapolate. We went, there was 80 of us, and I'm 43 years old. And I sat with some people who were in their 20s, and they couldn't move after walking so much. And I said, why can't you move, man? I'm an old man. Look at how white my beard is, right? These guys are in their 20s, and they say, in New York City, we don't walk that much. How can you live in New York City and not walk so much? They say our jobs just have us sitting in front of a computer all day. And now that we can do our jobs from home, we don't even get up and go and do anything. We're working in the same place that we sleep and we eat, and the bathroom is right there. Everything is just without movement. The sunnah is not to be sedentary. You got to get up and you got to go. You have to move, and you have to be in a place where the yield is going to be attached to the action that can only then accrue the yield once you have undertaken the action. I want you to sit with this hadith and read it every single time your nafs is telling you don't come to the masjid to be in the gathering where the Quran is being engaged. And then ask yourself if whatever it is that you're getting from sitting wherever you are is worth more than taking the steps that will then consequently yield through the repetition of exercise, sakina, rahma, the angels, and divine mention of your name in order to what? Just achieve minimally kind of a little bit more of a sedentary lifestyle. That's not applicable to everybody, right? Some people are going to log in from a classroom. Some people are going to be sitting in a workplace. Allah knows best. But if that's not me, then I can only take from it what I have the ability to by engaging in what it is that I need to in order to take from it. Does that make sense? Let's do this for 2 minutes really quick before we move on to another part. What is it that you're taking away from this conversation so far? What is it bringing up for you? Let's discuss with the people around us for a couple minutes, and then we'll come back and move into like what is tafsir and how is that different from tadabbur. Go ahead. Okay, maybe we can hear from one or two people. What are you taking away so far just from that hadith that we talked about? Any quick thoughts from anybody? What do we discuss? Go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. We were talking about how Ramadan felt like the being covered in the blanket of mercy, and but like when you miss Ramadan, this is a reminder that like there's other ways to like also feel that like blanket. And then we were talking about like you know the example you mentioned of people like learning the Quran and and being like subject to harm and stuff. And so we were wondering like if no people gather, like the hadith said something about like no people gather and read the book of Allah except that they're benefiting from this. So like how do we like the holding those two interactions was something else we discussed.
Because they wouldn't necessarily only be doing it for the right reasons, right? I mean, that's not a space to put somebody in where the means in and of itself contradicts the necessary objectives of what it is, do you know? Like, I don't know how many people I could put you in front of who will sit with me and they'll be like, you know, when I was little, my parents used to hit me, and it's fine. That's just the way things were. It's like, no, like, that's not a fine thing to happen. The idea that a culture might allow for something like that to take place, let alone then a parent putting a child in a place where somebody else, like, abuses them, God forbid, what God do you believe in at that point in time? Or allow for someone to believe in at that point in time? Do you know what I mean? And it's important. My kids, they study Quran right now virtually, not because there's not people that they could sit with in person, but either myself or my wife would have to sit there with them because of the sheer number of stories that we know of, that a child being in some of these places yields then a lot of problematic consequences. Do you see what I mean? And that's a problem, right? You're not just learning it outward, it's supposed to have an impact inward. I just put into the WhatsApp group some of the things we're going to look at in terms of how tafsir functions. Tafsir in and of itself, and we're going to draw on like some tafsir texts, it's an exegetical analysis, right? Some of what we'll draw upon also is called Ulum al-Quran, and there's a book that I'll share in the WhatsApp group that you can find a PDF of online, by Mufti Taqi Uthmani, that's just on the sciences of Quran. But we're going to be doing a lot more of what's called tadabbur, reflection, that is intrinsically linked to tafsir, because if you did tadabbur by itself, you could just turn the book into whatever you want to. Do you know? That's not what it is in terms of like how we engage it. But you can sit there if you want. I don't think we're going to. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I put a few things that we're going to discuss quickly just to have an overarching understanding of how we're going to approach this. But you want to understand Quran and Quranic exegesis as a mechanism through which meaning is extrapolated from text, right? And there's an overarching understanding of how you engage in a variety of things that we're going to talk about in order to do that, versus what a lot of people will do today is more eisegetical in their analysis, right? I have an argument, and then I can pick something to prove my argument. But then you can turn a book into whatever it is that you want to at the end of the day. This is why we spent a couple of years studying the Meccan Sirah, because the Sirah makes the Quran concrete. It's really hard to say, well, in Islam, we don't let people marry outside of their culture, when in the Sirah, that was something that happened with regularity. Do you see? Right? You can look to the Sirah to be able to see how the revelation was played out in real time. But you can turn a book fundamentally into whatever it is you want. And that's why individual reflection needs tafsir as a mechanism to contain that reflection, so the conclusions don't then separate from what the overarching objectives are of the religion to begin with. Does that make sense? And so what's happening when somebody does tafsir is not that they just read the verse and they say, well, this is what it must mean. But they're going to be looking at tafsir in a variety of modes, and they're going to be able to understand it in a way where the point is to preserve our religion from distortion. And people can struggle with certain things, but if you make a claim that something is religious that's not, or something isn't religion that is, you're just making your own religion at that point, right? If someone says I'm Muslim, but I don't believe in God, categorically, not someone has doubts, they're struggling, they have a crisis, but someone's just like, I'm Muslim and there's 0 gods. Or someone says, I'm Muslim and I think there's 3 gods. You can say that's not Islam, right? You're not judging somebody, but the base theology of Islam is that there is one God, right? So the definition doesn't allow for it. If someone says, I am, but there's 5 gods, anything other than one, you could say you're making your own religion at that point. Do you see what I mean? So tadabbur is different from tafsir in this regard, but tafsir has to be what creates a containment of the reflection so that we're not reaching conclusions without a basis or a methodology that's an entire science that has been built up over years. And so what tafsir is asking at a very simple level, what does this verse mean in its intended context as understood within the language and teachings of Islam? Not what do I think or what do I feel alone, and then that creates law or doctrine. Do you get what I mean? Do you see the difference? Islam is not Islam because your grandma said this is what Islam is. Islam is Islam because this is what Islam says Islam is. And people can be wrong regardless of how it is that they experience or choose to experience their life. And we start to then understand the answer to that question through different modes of interpretation. How do more people keep joining this thing every so often? Okay. So I'm going to read. So one, when you're looking at it, you're interpreting the Quran through the Quran. So somebody who's going to interpret Quran, they have to know what the Quran says in its entirety. They can't just know a piece of it, right? Like if we took all of the verses of the Quran or all of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, think about it as a puzzle piece, do you know? And if you've done puzzles growing up or you still do puzzles now, you're thinking about like a mega puzzle, 10,000, 25,000 pieces to a puzzle. If somebody knew how to connect 3 of those pieces together, or they knew that these ones all kind of fit in this section, but I don't know how they fit, you wouldn't say they're an expert in that puzzle, right? Similarly, if somebody just knows one verse or one hadith, they're not an expert in that genre of knowledge. It doesn't mean that you don't know the things you know. You know how to make wudu. For the most part, everybody knows. Some of you might be new to it and you don't know, but just to understand, most of us probably know how to make wudu. We might not know why we do wudu the way we do, but you don't have to know why you do it the way you do it in order to do it. Do you see what I mean? So in order to use the Quran to interpret Quran, somebody has to know Quran. But principally, the Quran often explains itself. And you might have a verse that's very general in one place and very detailed in another, or you might have something that's mentioned in one part of the Quran that's elaborated elsewhere. And so when somebody is doing tafsir, they're going to engage Quran in order to explain Quran as a starting point. A second is that they're going to use the hadith to explain Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ is considered to be both the primary interpreter as well as just the Quran in a living format, right? Why we practice the prophetic practices is because the Prophet is supposed to be and is, in actuality, the most well-balanced human being that has ever lived. And so the way that he engaged in all parts of his life are what offer like well-balance in one's life. And so when you are looking to understand Quran, what the Mufassirin would do is they would look at hadith about what he said. They would look at his actions. They would look at what he would tacitly approve or directly approve to be able to create clarification around verses that had ambiguity to them, to create specificity around generalized versions, as well as explain practical applications. You know how to pray from the hadith. It gives us an understanding of how we can start to create for ourselves like various parts to the routines that we have. Third, and we're going to do some of this or look at some of this as we look at these 11 verses is that you would look at the language and the grammar, right? The etymology of the words, the morphology of the words, the linguistics behind it, syntax, morphology was called sarf, syntax was called nahu. You would understand like the vocabulary that was kind of modern as well as pre-Islamic. And one of the important parts to this is called balagha, which is like a rhetorical device. You don't have to know these words or what they mean, but just in being able to understand, one of the ways it was understood, like how to engage the Quran, was through this kind of linguistic and grammatical approach to understanding the meaning of it. This is why you don't want to read a translation and based on a translation say here's like a legal ruling or doctrinal ruling, because the translation in and of itself, it doesn't mean you can't engage the text individually, but you have to be able to extrapolate from the primary language and the nuance that's coming from the language. Does that make sense? And when you have a shift in grammar, it can really change the meaning substantially. So we're going to look at potentially the first verse of Quran today, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, right? قَدْ, we won't talk about right now. أَفْلَحَ is a form 4 verb. It's in the past tense, and it means succeeded. قَدْ, in relation to a past tense verb, is more of a declaration of a statement. We're going to talk about this more, but just to illustrate what I'm saying. And then it says Al-Mu'minoon, the subject of the sentence. So what the verse says is, indeed have succeeded the believers. That's like saying sitting is Khalid. Do you get what I mean? We don't talk like that. We say Khalid is sitting. We don't say like sitting is Khalid, right? Or like sat Khalid. We say Khalid sat. Does that make sense? So you'd sit and you'd start to think out, well, why are they putting the verb first before the noun? Why is that indicative of something? Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense? Why is it written in the ways that it is? What's the difference between Allah saying Al-Mu'minoon versus saying Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, which he addresses the believers in that way also in different parts of the Quran, right? Do you get what I mean? They look at the context of revelation, so why or when a verse was revealed. And this is really important because quite often, as a modern concept, people always just want the answer, very black and white. But in and of itself, one of the things that tafsir does in relation to tadabbur especially is create an opportunity for us to understand that there's a need for the relationship between text and context. And if you don't have that relationship, it creates a big disruption in the way religion actually gets implemented. You don't want to detach verses from their historical grounding. 5, they're going to look at the companions in the early generations. How was it that they interpreted and engaged these texts? When they're looking at verses 6 that involve like fiqh or legal rulings, things that have to do with to-dos, they're going to apply principles of legal theory, what's called usul al-fiqh, so that they can understand how to deal with tools like abrogation, or where two verses might seem like at a face level they exist in conflict with each other. How do they understand that in relation to these things? You'd also then have a sense of thematic and theological coherence. So they have to make sure that interpretations are aligning with broader Quranic themes, right? You're not going to have an interpretation of Quran that's valid if it validates the oppression of a people. Do you know? How can the implementation of Quran validate oppression? Standing for justice is a central theme to Quranic ideology. Compassion. How would somebody have a verse that justifies selfishness? Do you think someone could interpret a verse of the Quran and say, here's where it's okay to mistreat someone? No, right? So if the conclusion of a verse and its interpretation contradicts what is established theologically in Islam or thematically in terms of ethics and values, that creates a problem. And then lastly, you have an opportunity for spiritual reflection, but it creates that not at a foundational level, but at a supplementary level. These are the kind of things that are happening when people are engaging in Quranic exegesis, and where you have someone who is a mufassir, they're moving with these tools back and forth. Think about somebody who uses tools when they're working on a car or they're working on a house. They just know where to go next and what to do next, and they can move with fluidity through it because that's their training. If it's not our training, it doesn't mean we're lacking in some way. It just means it's not our training. So we don't have to do what it is that we don't know how to do. But also, you don't want to take interpretive meaning from Quran from somebody who doesn't know how to do these things. And anybody can claim anything at the end of the day. It's a religion that tells us to submit to God, not to make God submissive to us. When we contrast this with tadabbur, which is reflection on the Quran, a simple way of understanding this is that tafsir explains what the verse means. Tadabbur reflects on what the verse does to you and demands from you. Do you get what I mean? What is this verse asking me to do is my personal reflection on it. You know, not what do I think it means, but the tafsir is offering to me meaning. And now my personal reflection on it says, what is it asking of me? How is it demanding of me? So when we're asking questions in tafsir, the questions that it's seemingly asking us to answer are a few that I'll put in here. What does this verse mean in its Arabic? What was its historical context? How did the Prophet ﷺ and the early Muslims understand it? What legal, theological, or linguistic implications does it carry? And that's where it requires some of what we were talking about before, the reliance on structured tools. Arabic grammar and rhetoric, hadith and reports from the companions, context of revelation, and principles of jurisprudence and theology. And then it's going to be associated with scholarship and methodological constraints. Tadabbur, it is more about reflection and understanding things at the level of what it means ethically. So a couple of framing points on that. It comes from a root that implies the end or what comes after. And then it's asking us to ponder some of these questions. What is the verse calling me to become? What truth is it uncovering in my heart? How does this reshape my character, my priorities, or my actions, right? And it'll make us those who act on the knowledge that we have gained. The whole idea isn't to just learn it and then live in denial of it. Like, you do something by acting upon what it was that was given to you. And we have a very repetitive message in the Quran that's telling us to reflect and to do tadabbur. And you can do that because it's rooted in personal transformation and not the explanation of things technically. And so if we were to understand like a key difference between these two things, tafsir equals understanding the text correctly, and tadabbur is about being transformed by the text. Does that make sense? And that's the whole idea. The Quran is supposed to be a text that enables us to be transformed. Tafsir is going to protect tadabbur from error, and tadabbur is what gives tafsir a living purpose, right? Like the whole point of the book is to make us a people that's changed. Okay. So I want us to get into the surah a little bit. I'm going to put another hadith in the WhatsApp group. And this is a hadith that is often used to describe the context in which these verses that we're looking at were actually revealed. Can somebody read the English that I just put into the WhatsApp group? Who has a mic? You have the mic? Who are you pointing to? Oh, where did Molo go? Did he run away with the mic? You have it? Somebody read the English?
Omar ibn al-Khattab said, when revelation would descend upon the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a sound like the buzzing of bees could be heard near his face. He remained for a while, then when it lifted from him, he turned toward the Qibla, raised his hands and said, O Allah, increase us and do not decrease us. Honor us and do not humiliate us. Give to us and do not withhold from us. Favor us and do not prefer others over us. Make us pleased and be pleased with us. Then he said, 10 verses have been revealed to me. Whoever establishes them will enter paradise. Then he recited, successful indeed are the believers, the first 10 verses.
Somebody read the Arabic of the hadith. Yeah, go ahead.
Kana idha nazala ala rasulillah al wahyu yusma'u inda wajhihi ka dawiyi al-nal fama katna saitan fa suriya alhu fastaqbala al-qibla farafa yadayhi falqala Allahumma zidna wa la tanqusna wa akrimna wa la tuhinna wa atina wa la tahrinna wa athirna wa la tuhir ilayna wa atina wa rabbana thumma qala inzallat ilayya ashru ayatin man akamahunna dakhala الجنة ثم قال قد أفلح المؤمن حتى ختم عشر آيات.
Jazakallah khair. I'll send out some voice notes with the hadith in their Arabic, so you can kind of listen to it as well as start to memorize the hadith. And we want to memorize these 11 verses of this chapter also, so that you can start to engage it, read it, recite it, inshallah, build a relationship with it. There's another hadith where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha is asked about the nature, the habits, the behavior of the Prophet alayhi salam, and she replies that his habits, his behavior were according to what was revealed in the Quran. And then she recites these verses of the Quran that we're going to study, and she says these verses describe his behavior alayhi salam. And so one of the things that we want to think about now as we look at this hadith that we just shared, which the Prophet alayhi salam is being described as receiving revelation, and the citing of the hadith comes in the Jami' of Imam Tirmidhi, as well as the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and Umar ibn al-Khattab being one who is sharing these words, gives us also an indication that the hadith in and of itself is something that Umar experienced as a Muslim. Does that make sense? Right? And so for those of you who were coming to the Sirah class, when we went through the Meccan part of the Sirah, we talked about when Umar becomes Muslim. Do you remember this? And when Umar becomes Muslim, he is in a latter part of the Meccan experience. This chapter is said to be a Meccan surah. The difference between Meccan surahs and Madani surahs is not that they were revealed in Mecca and revealed in Medina, but the distinction in revelation comes whether it happened before the Hijrah or after the Hijrah. So the surah in and of itself, in its entirety, being a Meccan surah, there's some people who say a portion of this chapter was revealed in Medina. Allah knows best, but most say that in its entirety was in Mecca. Characteristic of Meccan verses and Meccan surahs is that those chapters are usually revolving around one of three things. One, they're revolving around Tawheed, like what does it mean to believe in one God? Two, they're revolving around ethics, like the Quran is seeking to create a certain type of human being. You see? This is where the Prophet ﷺ is telling us the merit of these verses, that if you were to act upon these things, that you enter into Jannah. May Allah make us people of Jannah. It's not a complex formula. Do you know what I mean? We just read the Arabic and the English of the hadith, and it says very clearly that 10 verses have been revealed to me. Whoever establishes them will enter paradise. Why would we not then try to act upon what these verses tell us? The direct connection to it, right? You fast in Ramadan, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. It's been written for you as it was written for those who came before you, so that perhaps you might attain taqwa. The hadith is saying here very clearly that these verses, whoever established them, they will enter into Jannah. May Allah make us from amongst them. And then Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha is describing the Prophet's character and behavior, saying these 10 verses is what he did. That second bucket is important to understand because those verses in Mecca are giving an indication of what kind of human ethically the Quran is trying to produce. May Allah make us those who are the doers of his word and embody a character that's Quranic. You can't follow the Quran and be a jerk, man. Like, you can't. You know? There's no page in the Quran that validates and justifies mistreating people. Like, it just doesn't make sense for someone to turn text into something like that. Do you see? When we look at these 7 characteristics that are derived from these verses, an intended goal of this is that we try our best to then actually implement on the attribute that the verse is asking us to do. And then the third, right? So the 3 major themes of Meccan surahs, Tawheed, like human transformation, like producing a certain human ethically. And then third, it talks about the akhirah a lot, right? It's creating accountability by saying there's a world that comes after this one. What you do does not exist in a vacuum. It's going to influence and impact how it is that you have standing in the next world. And these people are gaining these things in the backdrop of a period of Meccan revelation that's not easy. The first part of Meccan revelation takes place in secrecy. You have some years where Muslims are coming together and nobody's bothering them. People might be aware, but there's no public proclamation of Islam. And then in the second phase of Meccan experience, you have a lot of persecution, boycotts, abuse. People are being killed. They're trying to assassinate the Prophet of God. And in the latter part of that second phase of revelation is when these verses are said to have come down. There's 2 modes to sequencing of the Quran. One sequencing is the actual order that revelation came down in. And the second sequencing is the order that we see the verses outlined in the Mus'haf. We're not going to get in detail on what's the reasons why these things are distinct or delve into it, but you want to know what is happening when the Quran is being revealed, because these groups of people in that early phase of Islam, there's not so many Muslims, man. They haven't gotten to Medina yet. They're not in Yathrib. They're at a pinnacle of being just harmed day in and day out. And then Allah is telling them, here is what this is about. I want you to open the chapter that comes before. Surah Al-Hajj. I'll put it in the WhatsApp group. And if you go to its very end, because the first verse of Surah Al-Mu'minoon, Imam Ibad read, says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, the believers have succeeded. They have falah. So one of the interpretations of Quran tells us that chapters in the Quran are linked together. The endings of chapters are attached to the beginnings of subsequent chapters. So if we go to the latter part of Surah Al-Hajj and you read its 77th verse, can somebody just read the English really quick in the interest of time? We're going to stop for Maghrib in a little bit, inshallah, and then we'll take a pause for the day. Can somebody read it? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I read from my end?
Yeah, go ahead.
You who are true believers, kneel and prostrate yourselves. Worship your Lord and do good works so that you may succeed.
Great. And if you read the Arabic of the last part of that verse, it says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, so that you might attain success. Falah. These last verses are talking about individuals in a way that bow down, prostrate, worship Allah, the doing of actions. And if you read the last verse, strive for the cause of Allah in the way He deserves, for it is He who has chosen you and laid upon you no hardship in the religion, the way of your forefather Abraham. It is Allah who named you the ones who submit, meaning Muslims, in the earlier scriptures and in this Quran, so that the messengers may be a witness over you, and that you may be witnesses over humanity. So establish prayer, pay alms tax, and hold fast to Allah. He alone is your guardian. What an excellent guardian and what an excellent helper. When it's talking about prayer and charity and being one who engages in a close relationship with Allah, these are characteristics of being a Muslim. And is going to allude of the potentiality of falah. And then if you go to the very next chapter, which is Surah Al-Mu'minoon, its very first verse, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, the Quran is going to tell you, how do you actually get that success that the previous verses told you might be able to obtain? And it's rooting it not in saying قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ, it's saying قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. So where the first chapter is giving us, or the preceding chapter at its tail end is talking to us about what does it mean to practice Islam dimensionally at a level of ritual, this is going to tell you what is the definition of a believer. May Allah make us from amongst them. What does somebody who have Iman look like? And the entirety of the verses that we're going to look at, they're going to give us qualities and characteristics that you aspire towards as indicative of one that has Iman billah, like Iman in Allah. Because what are the things that the Meccan surahs are trying to cultivate? They're trying to cultivate an understanding of who God is, of what the afterlife is about, and that it exists as a reality. And they're trying to inform the ethics, the values, the production of a certain type of human. You see what I mean? Why I wanted us to do this over the next couple of months was so that we can also start to think foundationally as we are building this space, how it is we inhabit the space individually and then ultimately all together. It's not going to tell us to do a bunch of things that are crazy hard. The characteristics are going to talk about things that have to do with practice in certain ways, but also a lot about the embodiment of good character and what that means. It doesn't also mean that it's given to us to self-deprecate, but it's aspirational in a way that we have a goal in mind for transformation. Okay, what I want us to do is really quickly just look at the first verse, and then we'll, in about 10 minutes, we'll take a pause and pray Maghrib, and we'll wrap up. The next time we meet, we're gonna look at like this verse in a little bit more detail. But I want you to understand the context of what's being said here through like this first verse. Can somebody read it? It's 3 words. Yeah, go ahead, Yasin. Great. Qad is participle. It doesn't really exist on its own, but qad here is what's called qad li-tahqiq. It's establishing a reality. Grammatically, it's with a past tense verb. Aflaha, that we already said, means like has succeeded, and who? Al-Mu'minoon. We'll go into the grammar and the etymology of this in more detail the next time we meet. But the word aflaha is really important to understand because all of you are here this first time. You got to make sure you stick through to the last time. And aflaha is going to be a key word to understand what that looks like, because we have a good number of people here now and online. The goal is not a quantifiable metric. The goal is being committed and seeing something through its end. The word aflaha, which we'll delve into more next time, its root falaha means success, and it's one of the etymologies of a word for farmer in Arabic, right? If you speak Arabic, you know falah like means a farmer, right? Okay. Why? What is the thing we want to think about as we are engaging in this process and delving into this 23rd chapter in the Quran sequentially? It wasn't the 23rd chapter that was revealed. Some say that it was the 67th chapter revealed. And if you try to understand how that works, most of the last juz was revealed in Mecca, right? That's like about a few dozen chapters of the Quran. It's 37 surahs in the last in the last part, the last juz. Do you know? So if you already got 37 there, getting to 67 is not a heavy lift. And then things like Surah Baqarah, Surah Nisa, Surah Ma'idah, these are Medini surahs. They take up a lot of ajza. There's a lot of parts of the Quran that make up just these chapters. So don't think about it in that way. But here, they're talking to a group of people in Mecca that are being persecuted. There's nothing without meaning in Allah's plan. And you have to determine how badly you want it. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. We're going to talk about it in a lot of different ways. Tonight, I want us to just think about why there's a relationship to farming as it relates to success, and how we can start to think about that with the intention that we approach not this jis, but the pursuit of akhirah. Does that make sense? Right? May Allah make us all people of Jannah. So let's turn to the persons next to us. Why do we think the word that's used here, Allah could have used any word, that He used particularly this word, that it shares a root? And just to give you an idea, this is how Arabic is structured as a language, right? Words have root letters, usually 3, some have 2, some have 4. So for example, the word Muslim, Islam, Salam, it all has the root salama, and you can see a connection there. Does that make sense? So the word aflaha as a form for verb in the past tense, it has the root falaha, which also is the root for the word for farmer in Arabic. What's the relationship between success and farming that we want to think about? Let's talk about it a little bit, and then we'll make dua, and we'll pray Maghrib. Go ahead. Okay, what do we think? What do we think is this relationship? Like, why is this word utilized in this way? What's the connection between a farmer and success? And how do we understand that in our kind of pursuit of some of the things that we're intending to pursue? Yeah, go ahead. In the back to the right.
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
I grew up on a farm, so immediately I think about
that's
the
cheating.
yeah.
Very good.
I think about the there's no immediate gratification when it comes to farming. Is if you're trying to create a farm that's sustainable for long periods of time, you kind of go into it with the intention of knowing that it's going to take a while. So I think about that when I think about the successes of the dunya versus of the akhirah. I'm kind of striving for something that is less impermanent than what's happening kind of like in our day to day, and are seeking something that's more long lasting.
What kind of farm did you have?
So I was born in the Dominican Republic, so it was like a lot of like native crops from there, like yucca and onions, garlic, plantain, mangoes,
Great.
things like that.
Can you outline what an actual year looks like on a calendar to plant?
So
And
we would
harvest.
probably like plant, like let's say like yucca for instance. It's kind of like a perennial crop back home, but we would start, let's say like around now, like in April, and we would probably get our first harvest like closer to December-ish. And then mangoes for us would take a little longer, so we would probably start that in February and get that back in the next year in February to get like a pretty significant tree going. But if you wanted to get like an even larger tree, then obviously it would take a few more cycles and years and things like that.
Great. Amazing. Alhamdulillah. Allah made the first person to respond a farmer. That's great. Think about this as we delve into this over the course of the next month or so, right? We're going to make dua, but I want you to think about this analogy of the farmer and how that's attached to success. There's a lot of farmers who they farm and they don't even produce anything at the end of it. Anything could happen. The rain might not fall. When you think about land and like power dynamics today, you think about colonization, you think about occupation and genocide. When we were in, where was that just now? When we were just in Medina, right? Man, I don't know. We went to a date palm grove, and the brother who owned the date palm grove was asking me about different things. And I said, do you sell Majdool dates? And he said, yeah. And then he was telling me just about different ways various companies will get dates from the Israeli government and then just throw on a label that says it's made in this other country or that other country. Allah protect us from this kind of absence of ethics. But in being able to think out, somebody is selling the crops of someone else's land. Do you know? An earthquake could hit, God forbid. There could be the opposite of drought, which is just like torrential storms, any number of things that could come in the way. The farmer doesn't even know if the crop is going to be harvested at the end of it. April to December, right? Can you imagine you started doing something in April and you got to December, and then when you went out there to get this stuff, it wasn't even there? What do? Next April, you just try again. What else are you going to do? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. When we go into it, grammatically, the language, when we ponder upon and create definitions, so there's not ambiguity. Some of you think success is not what Islam says is success. Some of you think success is how many rooms in a house, what logo on an outfit, what ornament on the hood of a car, whether you have children or not, there's a ring on your finger. Nowhere in the book does it say this is what is success. Success is Jannah. May Allah give us Jannah. Everything has the ability to be fitna or ni'mah other than the gift of Iman. Kids can be a fitna or a ni'mah. My kids are great, right? Marriage, a fitna or a ni'mah. Wealth can be a fitna or a ni'mah. All of these things have the ability to be both. Understanding that the farmer struggles and puts in the effort in order to then gain what is the understanding of success. Do you see what I mean? And you could say, is Islam easy? Yeah, Islam is easy. You just got to do Islam though. And if you're not doing Islam because in different parts of your day, you're ending up worshiping something else. If Dhuhr comes and you struggle with Dhuhr, it's different than saying, I pray Dhuhr or don't pray it at all based off of what somebody else tells me. I'm not worshiping God at that point. I'm worshiping something else because it's defining my decision making. Do you see? That's not a knock on anybody, but better to have a recognition of what it is that you're subservient to now rather than later. The farmer can plant in April and not even know that it's going to come in December. The whole idea with Iman is that you exert the actions and then you let the outcomes be with Allah. And the Iman in and of itself, we're going to talk about in more detail next time, is really about that trust in the divine. And if I start putting trust in other things, it starts to skew that. It can be hard, it can be tough. That's why the blanket of rahmah envelops all of us. You're not individuals engaging a text. The hadith is very clear. You gather together. And I forget who was it that was saying it towards the end, but the most important part of that hadith is saying that people gather together. It's not saying that scholars gather together, the Qur'an gather together, the Mufassirin gather together. It's saying people like us just get together and we just read Qur'an and we talk about it. And then Sakina, Rahmah, angels, divine mention. Consequently, you got to be in this pursuit together. And there's going to come some gaps between this. I'm going to be out of the country next week. We're going to meet then twice the week after. Don't drop off because the nafs takes control. And I'll tell you what the gradual progression will look like for some of you. I'm just going to jump on the Zoom today. No, you're here now. Just come again. Afterwards, I don't know what we'll do. Yassine likes to eat with people. Do you still want to do that with people? Yeah, look at that. He also has a farm, mashallah. A lot of farmers in this room. Who knew? You can be in community together. You can learn about each other, build real bonds together so you don't just run in and out, but you pray together, you eat together, you spend time together, and then it replenishes and rejuvenates your inside so that you don't go back to places where you're the only Muslim and they don't talk about God at all. And they make you feel like you have to leave your Islam somewhere else. You have to be able to put in effort to get it. The farmer plants not even knowing what December will bring. And don't think about it just in the prism of modernity. Think about the farmer that lived 14 centuries ago. Think about the one who had predators that would come. Think about a Meccan society where the rich took advantage of the poor all the time. Think about clans that were based on lineage. Think about people who had no protectors, people who put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and somebody else took credit for what it was that they did. Not any different from what a lot of us have going on in our lives today. Why would you want to isolate yourself? Don't let that be the case. If it's tough, then use sheer will and determination to get yourself up and going and continue to be a part of it. The hadith tells us that these 10 verses were really important in the defining of what a mu'min is and what good character is. Inshallah, Allah will bless us to embody those things. Just really quick before we make dua together, we're keeping the space open now, Monday through Friday from 12:30 to 10:30 p.m. We haven't announced it yet publicly. We wanted to just see how it goes. Today's the first day we're doing that. Some of you might remember Jamal from Ramadan. He was sitting out at the front door. It's not just because he's hanging out. He works here now, alhamdulillah. So make sure you talk to him, you engage him. He's a good brother, mashallah. We're blessed to have him in that role. I don't know fully what we're going to be doing, but we're going to be playing it out organically. In the next couple of weeks, we'll probably set Jama times, seeing what the traffic flow is like organically. Between now and those couple of weeks, we'll decide whether we stay open on the weekends or not, or we keep it closed so that we can have like other types of private events that are taking place. Somebody wants to get married, somebody's having like a seminar, or I don't know, right? I'm not sure what we're going to do over the course of the next year. But if you're in the area, you need a place to pray Monday through Friday, come stop by here. You need a quiet place just to reflect and to be. You want to get some rest, get out of the heat. You can come and be in the space. Make dua. Allah facilitates for us and is pleased with this effort. But we're trying to progressively get to what it is that will inshallah be a full functional operational space. This is still a 2-year endeavor, right? Construction will start upstairs, then we'll switch and do construction down here. And then inshallah, our community's new home will be fully done. And inshallah, it'll be amazing and continue to be amazing. But what we bring into this space now is going to influence what is felt in this space later. We need good people like you to be present here so that your prayers, your sajdas, your just being in community with one another, your suhbah is going to elevate, inshallah, the barakah of the space. And inshallah, it'll also then reciprocate transformation for you. So come if you're in the area. You can get your work done here, inshallah. Okay, let's just close with dua and then we'll pray Maghrib. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma laka alhamdu kama yanbaghi li wajhika wa azim sultanik. لك الحمد حمدا طاهرا طيبا مباركا فيه إلى يوم الدين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah. I beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We affirm, Ya Rabbi, that all praise belongs to you, praise that is abundant, beautiful, and continuous, praise that fills the earth and the heavens and what lies between them, and what lies beyond what we can even imagine. All praise is yours at the beginning of every matter and at its end, in moments of clarity and in moments of confusion, in ease and in struggle. Ya Allah, we end this first gathering devoted to your book as we thank you for allowing us to sit together in remembrance of you, for allowing us to speak about your words and for placing in our hearts even a small desire to know you better through your revelation. Ya Allah, make this gathering a witness for us and never against us. Make it a gathering that brings us closer to you, not one that leaves us unchanged. Make what we heard today a seed that grows quietly but consistently in our hearts until it becomes reflected in how we pray, how we speak, how we carry ourselves, and how we treat those around us. Ya Allah, you began Surah Al-Mu'minoon with a declaration, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, success belongs to the believers. So we ask you, Ya Rabbi, to make us people of that success. not through perfection, but through sincerity, not through claiming to be righteous, but through striving to become better in ways only you truly see. Make us people whose prayer brings them humility. Make us people who stand before you with hearts that are present, not distracted. Make us people who find sweetness in turning to you, and peace in returning to you, and strength in relying upon you. Ya Allah, make the Quran alive in our lives. Do not let it be something we only approach academically or occasionally, but something that becomes a companion in our daily existence. Let it be light when we are unsure, guidance when we are lost, comfort when we are burdened, and direction when we are uncertain. Ya Allah, bless our effort to learn tafsir and tadabbur. Increase us in understanding that is grounded, sincere, and beneficial. Teach us how to approach your book with reverence and with care. Protect us from speaking about it without knowledge, and protect us from reading it without reflection. Make us people who combine understanding with transformation and knowledge with action. Ya Allah, make these gatherings amongst the most beloved places to you. Let your sakina descend upon us in ways that settle our hearts. Let your mercy envelop us in ways that soften our character and purify our intentions. Let your angels surround us in honor of your remembrance. Ya Rabbi, mention us in your highest assembly in a way that we can never earn on our own. Ya Allah, allow this study of Surah Al-Mu'minoon to shape us deeply. Let it not be information we pass through, but truth that passes through us. When we hear of the believers, increase us in longing to resemble them. When we hear of success, make us strive for it with sincerity. When we hear of warning, protect us with your mercy. Make this a source of lasting change in our lives. Let it be a beginning of consistency, of reflection, of prayer, and of closeness to you. Let it bring barakah into our homes, our intentions, our time, and our relationships. Let it be a means by which we become more gentle, more grounded, more grateful, and more aware of you in all that we do. Ya Allah, forgive us for our shortcomings, what we know and what we do not know, what we remember and what we forget, what we intend and what we fail to carry out. Purify our hearts from distraction and negligence. Replace heaviness with sincerity and confusion with clarity. Send your peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one who conveyed this Quran with truth, patience, and beauty. Send your blessings upon his family, his companions, and all those who follow his path with excellence until the day we meet you. And all praise is for you, Ya Allah, Lord of the worlds. Just for a short moment now, turn within yourself. You sit in a gathering that meets the criteria for the angels to be present within it. May Allah make it so. You sit in a Mubarak time, the time of Maghrib. You sit in a house of Allah, a Mubarak place, inshallah. May Allah make it a house that's built upon taqwa and things pleasing to Him. Let yourself be present inwardly. Make dua for those that you love and those that love you. Make dua for those who struggled and sacrificed so that you could be where you are today. And most importantly, make dua for yourself. But for a few moments, just make your own dua, and then we'll end our collective prayer together, and we'll stand for Maghrib, inshallah. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the barakah of this gathering, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the presence of the righteous that are here, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the sincerity of the most sincere that are here, accept our dua. Ya Allah, bless us to be from amongst those who take what we learn and we act upon it, and not just people who hoard it for ourselves. Let the Quran that you have gifted to us be a means of transformation in ways that are good for us, Ya Rabbi, in this world and in the next. And help us to always remember that all you're asking of us is to try our best. So give us the tawfiq to be able to do so. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بارك الله فيكم. If you guys want to call the adhan, and then we'll stand for Maghrib in a minute. Inshallah. People can just put their chairs against the wall also. That would be great, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله